Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Crabcakes and Baseball. Cole, it's been a long time since we've been on, probably a couple months now. We're going to go over some preseason events across Maryland and Delaware. Going to go through the 29 rankings just released last week. Cole and I are going to take a couple guys each. Going to go over the top 10, then go over some guys right outside the top 10, do a little bit of an analysis on them. Make it short and sweet and to the point, and then get out of here. So let's get it all started. Cole, how are you today? Like I said, it's been a while since we've been in front of the camera, just you and I doing a pod. So, how excited are you to get back on here and start talking some baseball?
Well, I'm just a beacon of energy every single week. So, I may not look as thrilled as my voice may show me, but that's just me. I'm just a sunshine of energy that everyone reflects off.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Last time we saw you, I think you were stuck in an airport for
No, I
for
made it
eight.
back. I made it back when we
Yeah,
did the
yeah,
week.
you did. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's
Um,
right. So that was two pods ago, and when we did it down in Virginia.
but for anyone that did decide to spend an hour to listen to that podcast, the recap or the preview for Mid-Atlantic State games, unfortunately, I did not get Gundy's job. They decided to go with somebody else, probably a little bit more qualified than me. So I thought I'd provide that update for anyone that didn't uh, see that on ESPN.
Yeah, and everybody was waiting on you to provide that update. All right, let's get rolling. Gonna be short and sweet today. Um, Gonna go through some Maryland events, go through some dates. Obviously, all of these events, all these showcases are on the website. We've been flooding social media, both on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. All of that stuff is out there. Links are thrown to all the channels. First one of the year, Maryland preseason ID, going back to Olympic sports. We have a few events at Olympic sports this preseason, as we did last preseason. First one on the docket, January 25th, Maryland preseason ID, like I said, at Olympic sports. Then we move Delaware preseason ID. This will be an event that is with the SC Bulldogs Scout Day. Both of them will be intertwined here at Slim's Chance out there in Delaware. That is the Delaware preseason ID on February 8th. Maryland preseason All-State Session 1 will be at Olympic Sports on February 15th. Maryland preseason All-State 2 back at API. Ran a preseason All-State at API last year, going back there this year. That's on February 21st. Delaware preseason All-State, big one at Chase Fieldhouse out there in Delaware. Beautiful facility. Organization Titus uses that. So we have a great relationship with those guys out there. Definitely looking forward to getting out there. That will be an evening showcase. Some more information will be thrown out there in the next couple weeks about scheduling and stuff like that. That is on February 22nd. Then we go Rising Stars, Maryland Rising Stars Session 1 back at Olympic Sports on February 28th. And then the Maryland/Delaware Rising Stars back at the DCP facility, just like we had it last year, on March 1st. So those are the events that we have on the books right now. I am potentially adding one more Maryland preseason ID on that January 31st, February 1st date. We've had registrations flooding in over the past few weeks, even more coming in. Cole, when we did the pre-pod meeting, I had a couple more registrations just hit my email. So we are going to try to throw in one more event before the private school really gets rolling with their tryouts and their start date. So if I can get one more facility locked in, that is going to be the date that we are going to be shooting for. All right, so let's get in to the rankings. We are going to pull it up here. Rankings got released last Monday. We are starting it off when we do these initial classes. We always start them fairly small. In years past, we've started these classes at 15 players. We've started it even at 10 players. We've done 20 players. This initial update, we started with the top 25 players. Now, these were the players that we saw a ton of them at JFG last year. We saw a ton of them at some junior state games, some events throughout the summer. We have a pretty good handle of this class early. We had meetings out in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to all the other state directors. There's some state directors that that have a good hold of about 20 players across their state. There's some that have a good hold of 100 players, just like Jason Burton and the crew down there in Virginia. They could make a rankings of a top 100 if they wanted to. We tried to keep it small, like we always do in these initial classes. So we went with a top 25. Today in the pod, we're going to go through the top 10. Cole and I are going to go through and pick and choose some of the guys throughout the top 10, talk about them a little bit, and then we're going to highlight some guys just outside the top 10 that we're looking forward to seeing in the future, and some guys that should make a considerable jump. But without further ado, let's highlight this top 10. And here it is. Coming in at number 1, you have Sam Lerner from McDonough School. Number 2, Ethan Taylor from Calvert Hall. Number 3, Braxton Rose from Good Counsel. Number 4, Justice Smith from Caesar Rodney. Number 5, Lee Santoro from St. Mark's. Number 6, Scott Fillingame back at St. Mark's. Number 7, Topher Thatch from Georgetown Prep. Number 8, Noah Strachko from Calvert Hall. Number 9, Casey Kraft-Tischen from Archbishop Spalding. And rounding out the top 10, Sean Madden from Georgetown Prep. Cole, going to kind of throw it over to you, and this is not any specific player just yet, but in that top 10, obviously a ton of private school players. You're looking at McDonough, you're looking at Calvert Hall, you're looking at Good Counsel, and a ton of Delaware talent there as well. Obviously, we've had eyes on a ton of these guys over these past few months. Kind of your first initial outlook of this top 10 as we put this together a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's pretty private school heavy in this first update. I think the only guy not at a private school is Justice Smith. Even the boys from St. Mark's, that's private. So I think you see that, which can be pretty typical at the start of a rankings, just because I think typically we get to see the private school guys before we end up getting to see a majority of the public school guys. We've got a decent amount of kids throughout the rankings that, we've done a lot based on video that we've been able to see. Maybe we haven't been able to see them with our own eyes, but we've seen enough to kind of get an early idea of what these guys look like. We have some homeschool kids, we have some private school kids, the occasional public school kid. I think that's just what it boils down to. I think earlier you get to see those private school kids, whether they are just more willing to travel earlier than maybe some other kids that are maybe deciding to play the last year of Little League, or deciding to play more local with their local travel organization. I think you start to see the private school kids start to venture out a little bit in what they decide to do with, amateur tournaments and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty expected, but I think it also just showcases the talent that we may get to see in this 29 class throughout the private school. A lot of these guys being MIAA guys, but the occasional non-MIAA guys, you have prep guys in there. You've got Good Counsel guys in there. So I think it's a pretty good blend because after you get through that top 10, you really start to see a couple public school kids really, break up the private school heaviness at the top.
Yeah, and we've seen that in classes in the past, especially when we're doing these initial rankings. These private school kids are usually closer to the top, and then once we start expanding these rankings and we go a top 50, we go a top 75. Obviously, your public school guys are really going to start flowing in. But I think it also speaks to how heavy and how highly talented the private schools are across Maryland. And we're kind of going to start diving into it right here. And I'm going to start, Cole. I'm going to go Sam Lerner right there at number one. This is a guy that, and we wrote the story last week. This is a guy that we haven't seen a ton with our own eyes. But this is kind of a bar none number one. Everybody that we've talked to, obviously, we don't do these rankings completely by ourselves. We take some communication from some coaches, even some college coaches that have seen these guys early. And Sam Lerner was always pretty much at the top of that list. Now we've done some in-depth analysis of some video on social media and on some profiles. And Sam Lerner is right there at the top. 5'10", 170-pound catcher. Love the hit tool. There's plenty of strength already. There's barrel feel. There's barrel strength. It's a guy that can leave the yard at any moment at such a young age. It's a right catcher. I feel like the body can go a ton of different ways. I think if he really builds that lower half, this is a guy that can definitely stay at number one. I love that hit tool. I love the hands, and the plate presence is pretty consistent in each extended video that I've been able to analyze. So Sam Lerner right there at number one. Cole, going to move it over to you at number two. What do you got?
Yeah, at number two, we've got Ethan Taylor from Calvert Hall. Obviously, first thing that stands out with him is the advanced size for the age. Not the oldest guy in the class, you may think when you first look at him, but honestly, he may be one of the younger guys inside the top 10. He's 14'10" right now, 6'4", 187. Completely, when we sent our team down to JFG, you see, most of the times our jersey numbers for these kind of events are based on size. So usually your smallest guy is number one, your biggest guy is 25 if you take down a team of 25. I think we took 15 or 16 down. As you could expect, he was the biggest jersey on the team. Just physically gifted, but also has shown some athleticism. I mean, he's 6'4", 187 and runs a 7 flat, 94 exit velo, ball explodes off the bat. Really had a really impressive performance down at JFG. This was a triple that he had throughout gameplay. Just showed off the power and showed off the ability to just get the barrel in the zone. It may be an adjustment, but he showed the maturity at the plate to really make some impressive adjustments. Had the highest average among JFG guys at Junior Future Games. So definitely a guy that we've seen a lot of over the last 8 or 9 months, and definitely a guy who has definitely the body. You were talking about Sam Lerner and not really, definitely a bunch of different ways the body can go. We see the body for Ethan Taylor. It's just continuing to get more athletic, stronger, everything like that, and just putting it all together.
Yeah, that body's pretty advanced. Cole, we saw him for the first time. I believe it was the first time at the state games last summer. Obviously, the youngest player in attendance, but you couldn't tell that he was a 29 at that event. We kept going over to the roster and because it was kind of our first look, didn't know a ton about him. Obviously, heard some murmurs in the background of, "Hey, watch out for this Ethan Taylor kid," but we hadn't seen him with our own eyes. Didn't really know what we were about to see, and he was arguably one of the top players both during the workout and in game there during the state games, and then obviously we saw him down at JFG. He was arguably the top hit tool down there. The athleticism coming out at 6'4", 186, 187, with the ability to move like he does, 3'9", 130, right around hovering around a 7 flat 60. This is a highly athletic, highly advanced physical player that we really love the power upside here. We like the plate presence, swing decisions. We'll see. You kind of can lean on the youth there with the swing decisions and a little bit of swing and miss, but we didn't see much of that at JFG. Down there at Lake Point, like I said, he was on barrel consistently, and every time he stepped up to the plate, it was multiple 2+ hit games down there. So definitely excited to see him throughout the future. Hopefully get a chance to see him in the preseason and really see where that body is going over a winter of hitting the weight room pretty hard. Moving on, number 3 in the Maryland Delaware 2029 rankings, I'm going to move over to Braxton Rose Left-handed hitting outfielder, another guy that impressed us immensely down at the JFG. Highly athletic, guy that we saw a bunch during the summer. And then at JFG, it was pretty much Cole, and you can argue with me here if you want. It was him and Ethan Taylor kind of there at the top. And then there was a little bit of space with the guys after them, with guys that were able to impact the baseball at a high level. And the consistency is something that really spoke to me. It was a guy that can spray line drives line to line. I love the left-handed hit tool. There's some athleticism there in the outfield. There's arm strength as well. There's a little bit of two-way ability. We'll see where the arm goes in the next couple months. But Braxton Rose is a guy that I think you're going to see him be a sub 6'9", hover around a 6'8" runner in the next year or so. But really like that controlled, aggressive swing from the left side. So a lot of fun there. Cole, moving on to number 4. Going to hop over to your territory out there in Delaware. What do you got?
Yeah, we got the lone public school guy inside the top 10. We got Justice Smith from Cesar Rodney. This is a guy that we had seen video, or we had been sent video of before we really got to see our first eyes at him. Delaware TPG was our first chance, but comes in as the top arm in the class as of right now. Obviously, you can see he's a southpaw, consistently really sits in that low 80s, but we've seen him touch 84, 85 in the past as a 29. But, usually sits in that consistent lower 8s. You want to talk about the frame for Ethan Taylor. This one doesn't stand as much out as Ethan Taylor did, but certainly one that stands out. Already 6'3", 180, definitely some room to fill that frame and add some strength, and I think that'll be the big thing for Justice Smith over the offseason. If he can get in the weight room and continue to add some strength, it wouldn't be surprising to see him sitting, could be sitting 83, 84 come the springtime, 83, 85, maybe touching into that, higher mid to upper 8s. So definitely somebody that stood out to us, as I said, took him down to JFG, performed well. As you usually see with younger arms, sometimes the strike percentages can be a little up and down, but that's expected with, younger arms before they really go out and mature. This was definitely a guy who threw more strikes than some of the other guys that we were able to take down there. He was able to compete in the zone, do stuff like that. The breaking ball continues to develop, and I think that'll be another key thing to see for him. He shows a little bit of two-way, has shown some abilities with the offensive side, but definitely an arm-first guy as of right now.
Yeah, this is a guy that some coaches, especially out there in Delaware, that I've talked to a ton. Justice Smith is right there at the top of their list. I think it's an arm. When we see him in the preseason, I think you're really going to see an uptick in that velo. I love the fastball changeup mix. He works both off of each other very well. I love the body. It's lean. It's fairly athletic. I like the arm speed. There's a ton to like out of Justice Smith. I think this is going to be a guy that he's the top arm right now in the class. I don't see him moving out of that top arm spot anytime soon. The projection is through the roof. I think it's a high ceiling arm that once that fastball really starts ticking up, I think you're really going to see some highlights from him throughout the spring and then heading into next summer as well. Moving on, heading into the number 5 spot, Lee Santoro. We're going to go 2 straight guys from St. Mark's. First one, we're gonna go to Lee Santoro, DCP player that we saw a ton throughout the summer. Mr. Dave Wiggum is very high on Santoro. This is a guy that we're very high on as well. Cole, I know you've seen him a little bit more than I have. We like the athleticism there, left-handed hitter, a little bit of two-way as well. But Santoro, there's some present poolside pop there. 6', 190, some present physicality there. This is the guy that I think is going to continue to grow into that frame, continue to add some strength, continue to get some height there and some length in the frame. But I do like that hit tool. And I think this is a guy that can really explode offensively, powered both to both gaps, to the alleys, create some backspin to all fields. But Lee Santoro, St. Mark's continues to reload talent. And they got 2 really, really good ones here in this 29 class. I'll let you move on. Who comes in at number 6?
Yeah, Scott Fillingame comes in at 6, another guy that we've seen a pretty good amount of over the last, year or so. Like we said, playing with Lee Santoro on that 2029 DCP team. Arm really stood out to us first. That's what we got a chance to see first. Again, it seems I'm adding to the trend of long and lean arms. Scott Fillingame, 6'4", 185 with a lot of room to fill in. That's something that you and I have really talked about with Scott Fillingame is we'll see how much strength he is able to add, especially here over the offseason. How impactful can he become next year? But all the rest just impressive. 81, 83, that's what he consistently is usually around. Shows the breaking ball, which you saw a little bit there in the video. Breaking ball continues to get better. Definitely showed a more advanced breaking ball in the fall than he did in the summer. In the summer, it was kind of just, hey, to mix some speeds, let's throw something different. But you really were able to see him have a lot more success with the breaking ball heading into the fall. And there's some offensive upside as well. Haven't really gotten a chance to see much of the bat in game, but we got to see him at the DCP Battlegrounds in October and definitely showcased some impressive abilities during BP. I know that was somebody that we definitely talked about. But Lee Santoro, Scott Fillingame, two guys who can really impact the ball on both sides. You want to talk about Santoro, another guy who's, low eights, has been up to 84, stuff like that. Santoro and Fillingame, definitely a dynamic duo that St. Mark's is excited to have here over the next few years.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see both of them kind of run St. Mark's here in a couple years. There's still a couple young bucks there at St. Mark's. Obviously, St. Mark's still loaded talent wise. I'm looking forward to seeing them this spring. But Santoro and Fillingame right there biting at it. They're in that 29 class, waiting to really make an impact on the varsity level. Cole, going to go back to you at number 7. Go back to back with you. Topher Thatch from Georgetown Prep there at number 7. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a guy who I think the fall was a really big standout for him. We got to see him down in Salisbury. We'll talk about the arm first. Fastball has shown some explosiveness. We got to see him down in Salisbury and a couple times in Richmond. Has been up to 84, consistently sits in that low eights as well. Has shown a breaker that has been able to play. And you got to see a little bit more than me on the bat for the offensive side, but I know you walked away very impressed. I'll let you talk about the bat here in a minute. But the arm, I think his big breakout was there in that fall. Went down during bracket play, got to play in a tournament game, threw the ball there, 75% strikes, struck out 7 in a 4-inning complete game shutout. I think that's really where he put his name on the map. I know Coach G is really excited about Topher Thatch. I know he's talked to us a lot about him, having him on that O-liners team. I know you're going to get into an O-liners guy here in a minute. I'll let you talk a little bit more about the offensive ability of Thatch, though.
Yeah, I definitely like Topher. This was a guy that I kind of followed around a little bit. I followed that I guess they were O-liners at that time, or G's Lions. I think it was just O-liners. But this was a team that I pretty much just followed around a little bit at that tournament. And Topher Thatch was an offensive monster that I watched throughout the weekend. On barrel consistently, a guy that can spray line drives to all fields, but that pull side strength is something that definitely opened my eyes. And at such a young age, you're trying to really navigate and trying to figure out where these hit tools are going to go. You're trying to gauge ceiling. You're trying to gauge plate presence and swing decisions and all that kind of stuff. And it's tough, especially with these younger guys. Topher Thatch was a guy that was advanced with his plate presence and the operations at the plate. It was fluid, it was smooth, and there was obviously a ton of evident strength there and present strength there. So Topher Thatch, definitely a high ceiling bat, but we definitely like the two-way, like you talked about with the arm. I think it's a guy that has plenty of ride with the fastball. That velo is not going to stay in the low 80s for very long. Has some feel for the breaking ball, can get some swing and miss on it. So Topher Thatch, big time two-way in this class. And we're definitely going to see where that arm and where that bat goes in the near future. Moving on for me, going to move into the number 8 spot, and that is Noah Strachko from Calvert Hall. This is a guy that I saw firsthand a ton throughout the summer. Saw him at Calvert Hall early on in the summer, and the hit tool was something that definitely stood out to me. There's strength already there. It's a guy that's a high average bat. That can go gap to gap, a little bit more strength, more to the middle, to the pull side gap. But the ball explodes pretty well off the barrel. Highly athletic. It's a guy that's going to impact the game. He's versatile, but can impact the game in multiple different facets. And that's really what you're looking for is you're looking for versatility in this class. At such a young age, can you do multiple things and do multiple things at a high level? And Noah Stratchko fits that mold to a T. He definitely impressed me at Calvert Hall when I saw him, and we saw him a bunch throughout the summer at summer tournaments, both in Virginia and Salisbury. And it's a guy that can really impact it. So definitely looking forward to seeing him. I think the body still needs some physicality, just like pretty much everybody else does in this class. But can he really add strength? Can he add some length in that frame and really turn into a guy that's going to stay in this top 10 and even continue to rise throughout the top 10? But that's Noah Stratchko at number 8. Cole, going to go back to you. We got 2 more guys in this top 10. Going to go to number 9, Casey Craftition from Archbishop Spalding.
Yeah, another guy that's shown to impact the baseball on both sides. Really stood out down in Richmond over the summer in a tournament. You see the uphill bat path, but there is certainly a lot of strength in the frame. Right now, 6 foot 185, but certainly has impressed in a lot of video that we were able to see. We weren't down at this tournament, but certainly the video speaks for itself. This is a guy that I can't remember exactly when I saw him, but I probably saw him when he was 10 or 11 years old. As crazy as that sounds, unironically, didn't even know like who he was at the time. I was just there watching a family member at a game, and they were facing him. He was on the mound. That's where I say that, the impacts on both sides. And you could just see then he was miles better than anyone else on the field at that game that I watched. So it's good to see that 3 years down the line, he's in the same spot than he was 3 years ago. Going to head to Spalding for high school. I know he resides down on the Eastern Shore, or did reside down on the Eastern Shore at the time that I saw him. But certainly a guy that, I may have a little bit more looks of even from a very young age, and definitely a guy that, like I said, the physicality speaks out, especially on both sides, but the power upside, especially to the pool side, is something that is really going to be intriguing for Craftition in a Spalding class that has shown a lot of intrigue here as we head into this initial rankings for the 29s.
I'll tell you what, prep baseball does it different. We had Cole going out and scouting 10, 11 years old. What grade are you in at 10 or 11? You in 6th grade? 10 or 11? 5th grade?
Little league playoffs or something. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, we do it different when we're sending scouts out to elementary school.
You check Jamie's profile, you'll find a video of an 8-year-old hitting a home run or something. I don't remember how old.
Yeah.
Jamie's Twitter.
Yeah, my little cousin going deep in a little league game. But yeah, we do it different. We'll go out, and if you can play baseball, we'll go out to see you. Rounding out the top 10, I'm going to go with Sean Madden there at number 10. Another guy, the second guy from Georgetown Prep. Cole, this is a guy that I've spoke extremely high on. I've seen him a few times throughout the summer. Another O-liners guy that we've seen a bunch throughout the summer at tournaments, but I've seen him more in a showcase format. And this hit tool is something that definitely speaks to me. It's fluid, it's smooth, it's aggressive, but there's some controlled aggression there. The strength is definitely to the middle. When he was there at Joe Cannon, the ball exploded to both gaps. He was able to keep the hands in and go right center field for extra base hits. He was able to turn and burn on inside pitches and go to left center field. The barrel feel is there. I love how the hands work. The body is something that I think will continue to grow and add some physicality and add some strength to increase that power potential. But Sean Madden, it's a hit tool that I love. There's some two-way there as well. I love the way that he competes on the bump. He can spin it a little bit. Fastball dots to both sides of the plate. This guy, I think, in my opinion, outside of anybody else in this top 10, it's going to be interesting to see which one really takes off first. Obviously, we're highlighting the hit tool here with some video today, but that arm is definitely something that's on the rise, and I think it's going to be a guy that, in 2 years, we could be talking about Sean Madden being a 85 to 87, 86, 88, upper 80s arm that can spin it, that maybe it goes a little bit more than the bat. But for right now, that hit tool is one of the strongest in this class, in my opinion. He can get it done in game. He did it in game on live ABs there at Joe Cannon. We've seen him a ton throughout the tournament. So Sean Madden there rounding out the top 10 real quick. I messed up. I'm a little rusty here. Haven't done a pod in what, Cole, 2 or 3 months. I missed some video on Braxton Rose. So as I'm going back through to highlight the top 10, going to throw up some video here on Braxton Rose that I missed earlier. But to go back through the top 10, at number 1, Sam Lerner from McDonough. Number 2, Ethan Taylor from Calvert Hall. Number 3, Braxton Rose from from Good Counsel. Number 4, Justice Smith from Caesar Rodney. Number 5, Lee Santoro, St. Mark's. Scott Fillingame there at number 6 from St. Mark's. Number 7, Topher Thatch from Georgetown Prep. Number 8, Noah Strachko from Calvert Hall. Number 9, Casey Kraftischen from Archbishop Spalding. And number 10, rounding out the top 10, Sean Madden from Georgetown Prep. All right, Cole, about done here. I want to highlight some guys right outside of that top 10. Like I said, we ranked the top 25 players, had a 30 to follow list as well, with some guys just outside the top 25. But I want to go shoot right there from number 11 to number 25. Go through. I'm going to start with you with 2 players in the top 25, right outside the top 10 that you wanted to highlight as well.
Yeah, I'll start with Mason Guth, St. George's Tech, right-handed pitcher, outfield. Another guy, just fits the trend of who I'm talking about today. Another long and lean guy, 6'3", 155. Definitely a lot to fill in with the body there. But the arm was what really impressed us first. I think he threw on a Friday night. I think that was the night that you were able to come down on Friday, and then you had to go for an event across the bridge. And this was the one arm you got to see, and you walked away very impressed. Went up against a good DMV Prospects team, filled up the zone. Just ultimately impressive on the mound. Works low 80s, was up to 82. And then the bat showed itself heading into the weekend. Saturday and Sunday got notched a couple base hits throughout the game. Probably was our biggest standout from that opening tournament in Salisbury during the fall. Just like I said, another guy that we'll get to see where the body goes throughout the offseason. Can he continue to add strength? And if he can, how impactful could he potentially be for St. George's heading into the spring? I know they've lost a plethora of arms following last spring. Is there a chance that he maybe gets some time, potentially even at the varsity level if something really explodes?
Yeah, he definitely has the size, that's for sure. And when you're looking at these guys throughout this class, you kind of try to gauge projection. And Mason Guth is one that probably has the highest ceiling when you're looking at projection. I love how the body is now. It's lean, with plenty of room to add strength and physicality. And was definitely one to circle throughout that tournament. And like you said, I came away extremely impressed. So definitely a ton to look for out of Mason Guth, out of Delaware. Cole, going to go back to you. Last one, one more that you have coming in at number 17 in the top 25.
Yeah, 17, going to go back to Spalding. Going to talk about Charlie Comfer, a guy who we took down to JFG. Put on an impressive performance down at JFG, especially on the pitching side. We ended up going pretty far into bracket play on that final day at JFG, and we were going to bring Comfer out of the pen, but once we kind of knew we had the game locked up, we had him start the next game. Fills up the zone, adds and subtracts a little bit from that fastball, but we've seen it was up to 83 down at JFG, kind of was in the 78 to 82 range throughout his outing. Showed the breaking balls, as these kids are, it's more just trying to mix up speeds and stuff like that. Worked the breaking ball in the low to mid 60s, bigger curveball for him. Showed some ability on the offensive side as well, put a couple balls in play. And the run tool speaks for itself. Sub-7 runner already as a 2029. Definitely a guy that stood out throughout JFG. Definitely one of our biggest winners, outside of a couple of the guys that we've talked about, like Justice Smith and Ethan Taylor and Braxton Rose. I think Charlie Comfort definitely walked away with an impression following JFG.
Yeah, Cole, was that the game that we rolled out there, and it was like our second well, it was a part of bracket play. It was like the second consolation game, I think, that we rolled Charlie out there.
Yeah, we had the first consolation game, and at first we didn't even realize that if we had won, we had another consolation game.
Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out arms and everything. And then once we were told, like, hey, you guys, if you guys win, you get to play another game, we're like, okay, we can kind of figure out what we want to do here. And we told Comp for like, hey, be ready in case we have to bring you in here. but if we win, you're going to go the next game. So we ended up holding him. He got to throw the next game. I think he went 3 or 4 innings for us that game. Just competes. I mean, and that's really what you can do at that age. You're really just looking for guys who go out there and compete, and he definitely did that for us down in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I think it was we rolled out, and I forget who we were facing. Somebody out Midwest.
I think we beat Mississippi in the first. Did Missouri?
It might have been something
maybe?
like that. But whoever that Northwest team that we played rolled out a guy that was like 85, 87.
88, yeah,
86, 88 in a double consolation game, last game down at Lake Point, like basically, and they're rolling out a guy that's 86, 88, and 29 class, and we go and we compete with them for the first 3, 4, 5 innings, I think, and until they started to run away with it. But that JFG team was a ton of fun. We have a ton of guys, obviously, in the top 25, and then right outside the top 25 as well in that 30 to follow. All of those stories are there on prepbaseball.com that you can check out. Finally, for me, I'm going to go through real quick 2 players in the top 25 right outside the top 10 that I'm intrigued by. At number 18, Christopher Short, going back to Calvert Hall. This Calvert Hall 29 class, extremely deep. You look at some high-level top-end talent here. Christopher Short adds his name to that list. Physicality there in the frame, ton of strength there, ton of pop in the barrel. It's a guy that can go poolside jack at any point. I was extremely impressed with him at Calvert Hall when I saw him at a showcase this summer. I like the hands. I like the barrel speed there. So Christopher Short, one to circle in this class. And then moving on at number 21, Rhett Springer from Boonesboro, another O-liners guy that we've seen a ton from in the past few months. I don't know if he's still with O-liners, Cole, but I know that we had seen him a ton with Coach G's teams over these past few summers. Left-handed stick, highly athletic. There's some barrel feel there. It's a guy that can spray line drives gap to gap. That has continued to increase the frame, add some strength to it. But Rhett Springer, definitely one public school guy to look for in this top 25 that I believe has a good chance at continuing to rise throughout this class. That's it for me, Cole. We went over, obviously, the preseason events for 2026, went through the top 10, went through some other guys throughout the top 25. Cole, going to turn it over to you. You got anything else for the listeners before we kind of hop out of here?
Well, I did find when I got to see him when he was like 12 or 11 years old, back in July of 2022. So
big time.
Over 3 years ago. And funny enough, you want to talk about Casey Craftition. Well, the guy who was opposing him on the bump is a guy right outside the top 25 in Grayson Richardson. So all things come full circle down on the Eastern Shore.
It always does. It always does down there on the Eastern Shore. Everything always comes full circle.
But I don't got anything else. That's all I got. That's all I got.
That's a good way to end it. All right, we're going to get out of here. Everybody enjoy your weekend. This pod will be going out on Saturday evening. And then we got 28 coming out next week, Cole. And then the following week going back to the 26 class. And then after the 26 class, moving on to the 2027 rankings. And then after that, we're heading into Christmas and heading into the preseason events across Maryland and Delaware. But that's it for me. For Cole Ledger, I am Jamie Naill. It is Crabcakes and Baseball because that's what Prep Baseball Maryland does. We'll see you guys next time.